I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street, and that consequently this country is at war, at war, at war.
The Second Great Fire of London. The Second Great Fire of London refers to one of the most destructive air raids of the Blitz. An American correspondent in a cable to his office said, "The Second Great Fire of London has begun." On the night of the 29th of December 1940, approximately 100,000 bombs fell on the city. The Germans dispatched 136 bombers to the city. Fewer incendiaries were dropped than in the night raids of the 15th of November or the 8th of December. However, on the raid that focused on a part of the city that contained non-residential buildings, such as churches and offices and warehouses, many of these were locked and were not covered by the Fire Watch's order of September 1940, which applied to places of work with at least 30 employees, warehouses of an area of 50,000 cubic feet, sawmills or timber yards with more than 50,000 cubic feet of timber. The Luftwaffe raid caused fires over a greater area than the Great Fire of London in 1666. Incendiary bombs were the main armament of that night, moderately small, at 12 by 3 inches. The bombs carried magnesium that started the fires. The raid saw 1,500 fires begin in the city. Firefighters' efforts were hampered by a water shortage. The main water main in the city was bombed. Units trying to get water from other hydrants caused the water pressure to drop. Efforts to draw water from the River Thames was hampered by a low tide, something the Germans knew in advance. The Fire Brigade's difficulties were further exacerbated by a wind, combined with the concentrated area of attack. This was another key part of the German attack of that night, and this was to create a firestorm. 12 of those who were killed in the raid were firefighters, whilst 250 were injured. Artist Leonard Rosenman was serving with the Auxiliary Fire Service on that night of the raid. Whilst fighting the fire in Shoe Lane, Rosenman was relieved of his hose. Moments later, a wall collapsed, burying 2 firefighters working where Rosenman had just been. The moment haunted Rosenman for the rest of his life. He immortalized the scene in his painting, A House Collapsing on 2 Firemen, Shoe Lane, London, EC4. William Sampson, a friend of Rosenman's who would later go on to be a novelist and a travel writer, survived the incident. The fireman who relieved Rosenman of his hose was killed. Of those firefighters lost, 8 were killed when a wall collapsed on them, as they were working near a fire in Fleet Street. Sam Chavot of the London Fire Brigade described the scene that faced the firefighters. By the time we finished tackling fires on the roof of the Stock Exchange, the sky, which was ebony black when we first got up there, was now changing to a yellowy orange colour. It looked like there was an enormous circle of fire, including St Paul's churchyard. St Paul's Cathedral was in the immediate area and was struck by 28 incendiary bombs. Prime Minister Winston Churchill sent a message that stated, "St Paul's Cathedral, St Paul's must be saved at all costs." A famous photo, St Paul's Survives, was taken on the rooftops of the Daily Mail building by Herbert Mason. Mason was the chief photographer at the Daily Mail, and he was on the roof fire-watching when he took the picture. Mason described the moment he created the photo. "I focused at intervals as the great dome loomed up through the smoke. The glare of many fires sweeping clouds of smoke kept hiding the shape. Then a wind sprang up. Suddenly the shining cross, dome and towers stood out like a symbol in the inferno. The scene was unbelievable. In that moment or two, I released my shutter. The camera was believed to have been a Van Neck on a quarter-plate glass negative. The Royal Photographic Society magazine Photographic Journal remarked on the strength of the light. The light that was available for the instantaneous exposure is an indication of the fierceness and extent of the fire. The St. Paul's watch was first put together during the First World War. Then it was meant to protect buildings from German Zeppelin raids. With the outbreak of the Second World War, the group was reconstituted to guard against anticipated air raids. On the night of the 29th of December, a little after 6:30 p.m, an incendiary broke through the cathedral's dome and wedged itself within its timbers. Famous American reporter Edward R. Murrow stated in a broadcast to the United States, "The church that means most to London is gone. St. Paul's Cathedral is burning to the ground as I talk to you now." The reports of the cathedral's demise were premature. The incendiary burnt through the wood and fell to the nave. There it was put out by a member of St. Paul's Watch. Fellow American correspondent Ernie Ply observed the raid from the balcony. Into the dark shadowed spaces below us. While we watched, whole batches of incendiary bombs fell. We saw 24 go off in 2 seconds. They flashed terrifically and then quickly simmered down to a pinpoint of dazzling white, burning ferociously. The greatest of all fires was directly in front of us. Flames seemed to whip up hundreds of feet into the air. Pinkish white smoke ballooned upwards in a great cloud, and out of this cloud they gradually took shape. So faintly at first we weren't sure we saw correctly. The gigantic dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul's was surrounded by fire, but it came through. It stood there in its enormous proportions, growing slowly clearer and clearer, the way objects take shape at dawn. It was like a picture of some miraculous figure that appeared before peace-hungry soldiers in the battlefield. The economic damage of such large devastation of a major city is thought to have accelerated the collapse of the British Empire and the decline of Great Britain as the superpower in the decades following the war.